Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Onirico titled Ex-nihilo. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on Music Beat. Now this song is set for release on March the 15th. It's an 11-minute track. I like listening to long form stuff, especially when it's written well, so we're going to check that out today. It's from a duo featuring Benjamin Hernandez and Jorge Osos, if I'm not mispronouncing those names. And it's a first impression, so we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. And let's go. Got the art on the screen here as well. Fantastic to have the strings, the organ, the distorted textures. Wires as well. And the slow burn is fantastic. It's just a fantastic mixture of guitars, bass, keys, and the organs. The lead is starry and very, very beautiful.
What is life? What is this feeling inside? What am I? Is that a real meaning of life?
Double tracking.
Somebody save me. I need some answers to the questions in my mind. I'm falling apart.
I love that major lift that we have with the I'm falling apart. It's almost as if we aren't feeling particularly sad about that, as if we are hoping that the answers that we seek are going to alleviate it. Like this mistake is just another step towards that acknowledgement, I suppose. It's wonderful.
Somebody save me. I really need a reason to believe in you. Break me through.
Those R's are just gorgeous. I love the lush texture of them in the mix.
The universe, the galaxies, that makes me think that there's more than only me. Are we illusion? Could you tell me please if this is the truth? I am not sure.
I like the openness and the expanse after he asks he admits that he's not sure. There's just kind of an emptiness there where he wants that sort of like awareness to be that information there. It's just such a gorgeous track with the amount of dynamic range we have in it. There is such, because this is already the length of a full track nowadays. A lot of tracks are between 3 and 4 minutes. I really appreciate the time we're taking with this to not rush things along and sort of further explain what we're trying to sort of like articulate.
Are you in heaven? Draw me close to you and make me new. You are the truth.
Slick drum fill there. Great panning and work on the toms. I just think that organ solo we're having here, and forgive me if there's more of it, I don't mean to intervene, it's just, I love the fact that we have an alternate lead voice and that kind of reflects tonally and environmentally the spirituality that we might be discussing, some of the philosophy there. It is gorgeous to know to kind of have something that's sort of been preordained or kind of introduced earlier and develop it further into something that can kind of help the listener enjoy more of the track. Very technically competent organ solo too.
Whom have I in heaven? Whom have I but you? Whom have I in heaven? Whom have I but you? Whom have I in heaven?
Very legato there with that.
Whom have I but you?
And that calling out with the mild distortion at the end on the tail there, it really is us trying a bit more sort of forcefully to kind of crying out there. With that lovely lift for the crescendo there, to come back down like this is just fantastic structuring and, you know, differentiation. Second key solo.
You set the earth on its foundation.
Fantastic. Really interesting scale for shape, frame model shapes.
So it will stay that way forever. You set the earth on its foundations. So it will stay that way forever.
just before we continue, now I might go back a little bit just so that we can capture the next part, the beginning of that. But I think splitting a track up, a longer one like this, with the various lead sections like the organ that we had earlier, and then like sort of the cleaner sounding leads with the chorus and stuff like that. And then the guitar section, which I think performatively was it was like a lot less complex melodic or harmonically than what we had in the previous two key parts. I think that restraint there, more of a focus on some legato techniques, some sort of like sliding and kind of bending and such like that, to kind of make the most of those ornamental kind of elements on the strings. It's great to voice the guitar like that with harmonies there, like some fourth intervals or something. There's a bit of modulation as well. We're just picking really interesting tones for these ones with some lovely sort of like ascension and descensions alongside scales and modal shapes, with the drums being really sort of like supportive with the different sort of 8th and 16th note grooves there. Has some lovely clean strummed guitars on the sides as well, very lush texturally and instrumentally with the layers and stuff, and the bass being quite sort of explorative within its fretboard as well. This is wonderful, man. Holy shit, that was wonderful. And going halftime like that with a distorted rhythm riff, man, is sick. I love the vibe shift. Are we doing polyrhythms or like different time signatures here? Oh, it's a way of continuing this, right? Going back to a synth lead. That was a hell of a ride. I enjoyed my time with it. I'm going to try and keep my conclusion nice and, well, reasonably nice and brief. I want to go through all the stuff I usually do, but I understand this has been a longer video, and I know I've interrupted, so apologies if there's been an annoyance from me, and I just wanted to talk about stuff as I went through in case I missed anything in this end section. But let's do the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Onirico, titled Ex-nihilo. Nihilo. I'm not sure which of the two it is. Apologies. I'm hoping it's at least one of them. Now, this track, as I understand it after listening to it, and with the understanding that I feel as if I need another listen to it to really get like, to focus solely on the lyrics, for example. There's just so much going on within this track. But on my first impression, my understanding of it is that it was someone kind of exploring their own place within the universe, whether their existence is meaningful or meaningless, trying to find trust in things and sort of like an understanding that will sort of meet their needs was also, I suppose, be gratifying. We look towards like heaven and a higher power and stuff like that, so I'm wondering if there's sort of like a sense of spirituality beyond simply the philosophy or the existentialism of it. Either way, I think it's a wonderful thing to explore in long form. I understand that, like, you know, it's not necessarily a completely unique thing to kind of, you know, explore whether or not there is like an afterlife or whatever in music. A lot of music explores their own sort of meaning of life and etc. But I think the way that we tried to not answer our own questions in this and like create this sort of like self loop, which I think allows the listener to come to their own conclusions based on the things that are provided to them within the track. It helps us to understand the position of the vocalist better, as well as potentially the rest of the band. And those questions often, I think, guide the way we voice ourselves, either within the performance of the vocalist themselves, the singing, or within the arrangement, or even both itself. With that understanding of what the track is about in mind, and with the understanding there's probably more nuance I'm missing, I think that it was sung incredibly well. The singer is very tuneful, they had fantastic control of pitch, their vocal technique was solid, fantastic use of head and chest voice there. I don't think we were super explorative of our potential vocal range. I think we had a place where we were comfortable with. There was a bit of vocal fry occasionally. There was some vocal effects where we had a bit of sort of like grit or like distortion them, or like a bit of filtering or whatever to kind of help them sort of hang over, sort of decay over the time, maybe a bit of maybe some reverb and delay and such. Occasionally I think we double tracked very subtly to add a bit more sort of emphasis on certain components. But it was never, I think, more than trying to simply provide a direction for the voice-led parts of the song outside of the other instrumental leads, which we'll get to in a moment. And I think that it sounded like someone that was just trying to figure this all out. And I think it's incredibly authentic. It was intriguing to listen to because of that. It didn't over-explain itself either in tone or within the lyrics. I think there was a nice connection between the way it was sung and the note choices there. We harmonized really neatly with the backing parts, and I think the choices we chose in those verse melodies and all the other sort of like choices we made, even if there were some minor components, they kind of, if they did juxtapose, they contrasted with majors to kind of insinuate that we had other thoughts in our mind apart from what we were singing. It was intriguing and sort of mysterious and opaque, and I kind of dig that. It lets us in a little bit, but not too much. I think the characterization was fantastic. It was very mature, and ultimately I think, again, there was a great sort of like connection between what the singer was doing and the lyrics. And I suppose that just brings us to the rest of the song, which at 11 minutes, there is a lot. There were several different sections, like with the vast majority of it including like keys, electric keys. There were organs, guitar, bass, drums, some synths later on, some sort of different tones of guitars later on, like acoustics and such like that. We layered instruments as we went on, and we adjusted to suit the mood of what we were trying to sort of insinuate lyrically. It wasn't full on the entire time. There were peaks and troughs throughout, which was nice to have, not only the dynamic range, but the varying intensities to allow the listener to find it more interesting because of that. At the 4-minute mark, which is again the length of like a lot of songs nowadays, we'd kind of barely even scratch the surface of like the second or third verse. None of the themes or existing chord progressions or bass lines or drum fills or key parts or anything had become stale by that point. Part of that is due to like the slower, not like, if I like play a little bit just from this part here, I know this, like the tempo wasn't slow, but the song had a contemplative pace to it, despite the use of 8th and 16th note grooves throughout on the kit there, with an affinity for working fluently across the entire kit. We explored things nicely with the toms as well as in the cymbal grooves and stuff like that, and it was a nice sort of anchor and flow, sense of flow for the rest of the bass elements, especially. I mean, the bass guitar was wonderful. I loved that we didn't just stick with the root notes or the chord triads and stuff like that. We messed around with the scale shapes, worked with like third and fifth and such. We didn't have any bass solos per se, but it was more than simply just someone having a go and going, oh yeah, we'll just do like C the entire time for a C chord. And I like the fact that we tried to give each instrument within this piece more than just a couple of notes and calling it a day. And the song is compositionally complex. We had several parts that were which were extremely dedicated to insinuating a certain sort of like vibe or atmospheric shift there. One of the ones that caught me off guard was actually at the end where we went into the distorted guitars for kind of like a breakdownish kind of thing. It was a lot of this track had sort of emotionally complicated extended harmonies that were often sort of like fulfilled by the various notes within the key parts, or like the insinuation of the synths. Even the chorus parts, like the choir parts, I didn't mention the choirs there in the vocal part, but there were choir components as well, backing parts, which sort of lovingly caressed the sides of the stereo field. And I thought that was really dope as well. It was like these sounds of angels, basically. I'm not trying to hyperbolize that. Genuinely, it was gorgeous. There are a lot of pretty elements in this song. Some of the extents and sort of like melodies there, and interesting sort of abbreviations up in the top, and sort of explorations up in the top end. They glistened and glowed and filled a very important purpose of adding a sense of sparkle and magic to it. We weren't afraid to kind of make the most of the range we had on the 88 keys, and the guitar parts that we had there, whether they were strum sort of acoustic steel string chords there, or one almost virtuoso guitar parts, especially that first half of the guitar solo that had me. I was thinking, wow, this is going to be more of sort of like a feel-based solo where we kind of hold back on a lot of the kind of crazy, kind of shreddy stuff, and sort of focus more on like bends and kind of like chordal kind of phrasings, and try to make it sort of like more of a choir or like a solo voicing and make it sound like it's singing. But then we went just full on legato, kind of like 16th note, wonderful sort of legato phrasing. It was incredible to listen to. It was such a wonderful development and evolution of what we had initially. And then the guitar just continues beyond that after that breakdown, but it caught me by surprise because we did not sleep on it. There was no filler within this. This is the epitome of what it means to create an 11-minute song in 2024. And considering I think these guys have been around for 15 years now, I think if this took 15 minutes to get to this point, it was 15 years, should I say, to get to this point, it's well worth it, man. The fact we had the guitar being so versatile with the various sort of like extended arpeggios and broken chord shapes there, with the wonderful sort of like modal phrasings and like the exploration of the high parts of the fretboard there was wonderful in regards to sort of frequency and sort of range staging there. And whether it was the synths, it was like some of the string parts we had earlier on. I don't know if those were strings or like synth strings, but either way, they were tremendous there. We just knew how to fill up those mid and high registers, even when we didn't have like a dedicated organ solo or like a dedicated like electric keyboard solo or something like that, because there were several lead sections throughout this. I would genuinely recommend people, if they enjoyed this track, listen to it outside of this review on your own and just really kind of soak it in. Sort of isolate yourself and reduce the amount of exposure to have to things outside of the review, and just kind of sort of like dig it into it and like really kind of accept and kind of fall in love with it. But the track had 11 minutes. With that amount of sort of like compositional diversity, with the affluence of the various instrumental parts there, the wonderful transitions between parts there, the varying themes there was no one dominant theme there. It was an exploration, I think, of the viewpoints of the person, what they were discussing there, different sort of angles of trying to find the answer with different chord progressions and bass lines and different sort of ideas there. There was no points where it was super duper happy to become sort of minimalist about it. There were no super happy parts. There were also no super sad parts. It was like I think the progressions gave me a sense that there was a hope of an answer, but also that we were kind of sad or kind of we were crying out for it. We were still kind of desperate for it. It was like we wanted to know simply so that we could know. I don't know how to explain it further. I feel like I'm going to go and kind of go on a tangent. This is already quite a long video as it is, but I just want to sort of like, I want to sort of appreciate and take note of the way it tries to offer a lot of different perspectives on what was discussed. Ultimately, I think to say anything less than it shows a fundamental music theory, understanding of music theory and composition is to do a disservice to what they've managed to pull off with this track. And I mean that like genuinely. It's a wonderfully written piece of music there, and I think it's definitely worth the time taken to sort of like listen down and appreciate it. And the icing on the cake of all this is the studio recording, the mixing and mastering, which is absolutely stellar. Like, if I was to give it a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a 9. And that may not seem like much, but that's incredibly high for me. There's very little that I dislike. I haven't heard the perfect song yet. That's why it's a 9. Do you know what I mean? I think that the way that it was produced with the clarity of the vocals, both like the backing and like the main, were fantastic. The guitars, whatever tone they were nicely niched in the free spectrum and the stereo field. Alongside, like, it was things like the electric guitar being on just one side at like that 9-minute mark there that catches you off guard. You're like, why is this happening? But also there's like fluctuations in the position to like the organ at that first solo section. The bass and drums are nice and full, the drum kit, the toms go from left to right, etc. There's a lot of thought put into that. There were no weird resonant frequencies. There was adequate dynamic range within this. It had life to it. It just sounded like there was a fantastic sense of cohesion and chemistry between the various instrumentalists and parts involved, as well as within the mix itself. It sounded like it was recorded in the same room. It was very thoughtful in that regard. It was nice and loud without pumping. And that's my review of this track from an act named Onirico, titled Ex-nihilo or Ex-nihilo. I'm not sure it is. I think it's Ex-nihilo, but I could be wrong. But hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via the various social medias. I think this is on SoundCloud, but it'll probably also be on all digital stream services soon. But stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need to help more than with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.